Smart 24, driving business.
This is Smart Means Business. Good to have you, and we are into our business insight this morning. I'm Joram Paul Sonko, and of course our conversations this time around are going to rotate around deposit taking. But when we talk deposit taking, how about not deposit making rather, but if we only talk about deposit making without talking about deposit protection, then you will not be able to deposit any fund when it comes to any kind of bank you're associated to. Well, it's time for our business insight, but before we dive into that, we remind you to grow your investments with the Zabo platform. Use the USSD code *292# and of course kickstart off your investment in the government bonds and other securities available on the platform. When you're done with inserting the code, you will be able to register with the platform using your national identification number, and in the next 24 hours you will be able to grow your investments, and you'll be able to invest every single day, Monday to Friday, from 8:15 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. Remember, with the Zabo platform, the chances are quite many for you to grow your investments. With just a minimum of 15,000 Ugandan shillings per se, you can grow and definitely kickstart your investment. The markets are only fully closed during the weekends and on public holidays. Zabo, my money, my future, All Tech East Africa, do something new. Now, our business insight this morning is proudly sponsored by the Deposit Protection Fund. And well, the conversations are going to be deeper in understanding, because when you come to think of it, the banks and other financial institutions do face quite a number of challenges. And in the long run, some of them either way close, others rebrand. We've seen all these cases in the country here, not only in Uganda, within the East African community region and world over. But the question is, what then happens once you, who has been banking with a certain bank, what happens to your money once it is closed? Bigger questions, trust me. The other question would be, have you ever wondered where your money goes after that is done? And then, did you know that the Deposit Protection Fund, for example, was established to specifically ensure that your deposits are safe? These are all questions that we're going to be having here on the show this morning. And of course, you have to understand more of this, and of course, kick in with us. Now, joining me to discuss this and more, I do have Julia Claire Olima, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Deposit Protection Fund. Good morning, ma'am. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sonko, and good morning, viewers. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, and on my extreme left, I do have Patrick Ezaga, the Director of Communications that is at the Deposit Protection Fund. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Joram. A very good morning to all the viewers out there. It's a pleasure indeed to be here to share with you.
I will tell you, I have two lively guests this morning, and our conversations will be definitely helping you to feel safe as an individual. Imagine if you're going to a bank this morning and you listen to such an interview, you will definitely feel the vibe, and you'll definitely feel the morale to continue banking. I'll start with the CEO. How and when was the Deposit Protection Fund established in the country?
Yes, Sonko, the Deposit Protection Fund was established in the country as a separate legal entity in 2016.
Okay.
That's when the Financial Institutions Act of 2004 was amended. And we started operationalizing the fund in 2017. That's when the Minister of Finance put in place a board of directors, and the board of directors put in place a management team.
Okay.
Me, Patrick, and the rest of the staff that we now have.
Yeah.
So the Deposit Protection Fund has existed in Uganda since 2016 when it was established.
Yeah.
However, I must emphasize that before it became a separate legal entity, the Deposit Protection Fund existed within the Bank of Uganda as an account into which the banks remitted premiums.
Okay.
So when we took charge of the fund, we didn't find an empty basket, we actually found money there. We have continued investing that money over the years and continued to collect from the banks. Okay. So the Deposit Protection Fund as a legal entity existed in 2016, but before that it existed as an account within the Bank of Uganda into which the banks paid money.
Well, it also gets me to understand what contribution does the Deposit Protection Fund make to our financial sector in terms of stability?
Yes, so the Deposit Protection Fund contributes to building confidence by instilling into the depositors that in that unlikely event that your bank is closed, you'll not lose everything. At least the Deposit Protection Fund will as immediately as possible pay you up to 10 million shillings, and then the rest of your money will be paid once the liquidation process takes place. That means once the assets of the bank are now sold off and returns come in. Okay. So it's supposed to give all the depositors out there, and even those who are not depositing money, encouraging those who have decided to keep their monies in their shops, maybe in their cars, please take these monies to institutions. And because I work with the Deposit Protection Fund, I'll say those regulated by the Bank of Uganda. Of course, there are other institutions out there. Yes. But if you put your money in an institution that's regulated by the Bank of Uganda, in that unlikely event that it is closed, the DPF will be there to support you and give you 10 million, up to 10 million shillings, depending on the amount of money that you have. So if you have 3 million, we'll give you 3 million. If you have 20, we shall give you 10, then the balance you'll have to wait for the liquidator. So the depositors, the public should not think that even if you have 1 million shillings in the bank, when it closes you get 10 million. No, we'll pay you up to 10 million depending on what you hold.
You've been saving.
Depending on what you've been saving.
Yes. Let's get to Patrick Ezaga here. When you look at the regulated contributing institutions, what are these ones? And how do I know personally that my financial institution per se, or the bank that I deposit my money into is contributing, is a contributing institution among the regulated contributing institutions here?
Thank you, Joram, and good morning again, viewers. I think I'll try and make this as simple as possible. When we speak of contributing institutions, we should start off from deriving the name of the institution. You know, we are called fund. A fund is like a basket into which you collect money. Now, in our case, the financial landscape is comprised of different kinds of financial institutions. However, there are those that are regulated by the Bank of Uganda. And these constitute commercial banks, credit institutions, and microfinance deposit-taking institutions. So currently we have 33 of them. 25 commercial banks, 4 credit institutions, and 4 what we call MDIs. Now, these are called so because every year they contribute some resources into this pool we call the fund. And it's very easy to know whether yours is one or not. I'll give the analogy of, for the simple business person, you know, they get trading licenses, right? And when you get a trading license, you are required by law to display it in a location where customers are able to see. In the same vein, the Central Bank, Bank of Uganda, issues licenses to the contributing institutions. Not necessarily trading licenses, but they're regulated and registered by the Bank of Uganda. And each one of them is required that when you receive your license in the banking hall, in the hall of the institution, you're supposed to display it. So you and me as depositors, if you walk into a financial institution, the first thing you should look out for is, are they regulated by the Bank of Uganda? Do they have a license? It is as simple as that. And this is a license that is renewed frequently. So that's what we mean by contributing institutions.
A quick one as well. Why do you think citizens should get interested in knowing about the Deposit Protection Fund? Why should they pay clear attention to this? Because most of them are bankers and they already have accounts in there.
Now, this is important because at 3 levels. The first level is that if you're working hard, Joram, to make money, you don't only put an effort in the making of the money, you have to be conscious about the bad times as well.
Accountability.
Accountability through the process, but in the end, should hell break loose and something goes wrong, you need to have that level of confidence that, not all is lost. So as members of the public, it is very important to know about the Deposit Protection Fund, because it is the agency that will come in at the time when a financial institution, for unfortunate reasons, either goes down or something like that. It has already been mentioned also that the DPF is a government agency.
Yeah.
And as indicated by my CEO, since about 2017 when we started, I would like to say it's a relatively new institution. And as a director of communications, I still have work to do to ensure that the public gets to know about the fund. And once you get to know about the fund, then you get to know that your money is safe should anything happen to it, up to the regulated amount. And therefore, that should encourage you to move your money from wherever it is that you're keeping them into the formal financial system. The economy grows when money is in the formal system. If money is sitting under your bed and my bed or in pots, it doesn't help. Now, the fund is an institution that you need to get to know about, because then it helps you to develop that confidence to move your money. And that's our appeal. Get your money off the informal systems, we put it into the financial system.
Okay. All right. Now, when we speak deposit taking, let's say Deposit Protection Fund, rather, there is another big concern here. In my introduction, I mentioned something that normally banks end up closing, and at times you as a saver or someone who has been banking with this particular bank, you feel like if a bank closes, your money is not secure anymore. It gets me back to our CEO. In regards to a situation, a bank is closing down today, maybe in a few months' time, and the bank who is covered or protected by the DPF, and what is the protected limit during such a time? We need to know, is the individual covered more, or is the bank going to be covered?
Okay, Sonko, that's a very good question. The Deposit Protection Fund covers the depositors.
Okay.
That's why you'll hear on radio,
yes,
the banks, when they're advertising, they'll say customer deposits are covered, are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund. It means when the bank closes, we shall not pay the bank money. We shall pay you, Sonko, and you who's out there who has put your money into the bank. And it is the reason why my colleague probably later will say, in order for us to be able to pay you, we need to have information from you, the depositor. We need to have your national ID. We need to have your alternative mode of payment, especially if we could have your mobile money account or an alternative bank account. That will help us, so that when your bank A, you hear that it is closed after a few days, you'll find money on your mobile phone. Why? Because you've given us information. You've given the institution that you bank with that information. We get that information at the time the bank is closed, and we pay you, the depositor. You, Mr. A, Mr. C, who is banking with the bank. We don't pay the bank any money.
Okay.
Yes.
Case in point, my money, the money protected is more than, the money I have is more than the protected limit.
Yes.
And then what happens? And what happens to the rest of my money in such situations? And when do I call the DPF in regards to such cases?
To such cases. So previously, before we took charge of the fund in 2016 or 2017, the deposit insurance limit was only 3 million shillings. When we took over the fund, we noted that that was a very low limit. And so through the Ministry of Finance, the government of Uganda increased that limit from 3 million to 10 million. That is 3 times, because we want Ugandans to have more confidence in the financial sector. So what happens is that if you have more than the 10 million that we protect, you'll wait for the liquidator. And most times the liquidator will be the Bank of Uganda. So the Bank of Uganda takes over the bank. Bank of Uganda asks the Deposit Protection Fund, pay the depositors up to the protected limit. After that, they take charge of the bank, start selling the assets, and then they're able to give the depositors some of the balance, especially depending on the receipts that they get from liquidation. But I'd like to assure the public, for the banks that have been liquidated previously, we're looking at those banks of the late 90s, early 2000s, the liquidation process brought in enough proceeds. So I can confidently say most depositors were paid all their money when the liquidation process took place. We come in as a stopgap at least so that the depositor doesn't suffer immediately the bank is closed. We give you up to that. Okay. Then the liquidator gives you the balance. I don't know whether I've answered the question. So if you have 20 million, we'll pay you 10 million immediately, and the other 10 million you'll wait for the liquidator. Who is the liquidator? The liquidator is the Bank of Uganda.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So after the Bank of Uganda is done selling off the assets, then they can generate your money
yes,
back,
yes,
right?
they'll pay you the depositor.
Okay. And Joram, if I may just chip in, as CEO said,
yes,
that at the 10 million shillings, we cover up to 98% of the depositors in the country.
Okay.
So all the deposit accounts in the country put together, the 10 million shillings covers 98%. And that is premised on the fact that the concept of deposit insurance primarily focuses on what we call the less sophisticated.
Okay.
You know, the bottom of the pyramid, the low income.
The low income earners.
Because when a financial institution collapses, the net incidence and impact on that guy is probably heavier on them than you, for instance. And the presumption also is that a majority of those who are less sophisticated may not be as informed as you are. They are not multi-banked. I'm sure you have more than one account. And the chances of all those banks collapsing at the same time is almost minimal.
You know, I'm actually skeptical every time I'm opening up an account in the bank. I'm like, where does this bank come from?
Now, once you're satisfied yourself that this is a properly regulated institution, confidently put your money there. So the 10 million shillings, you can imagine 98% of depositors across the country. What that simply means is at any one time they have 10 million shillings or less.
Yeah.
It is all about 2% who have more than that. And that's the category that the CEO is mentioning. Should anything happen, the liquidation process then comes in to help them.
And I want to add, Sonko, that out of those 98%, around 95% have less than 1 million shillings
onto their account.
So our cover, many people will say, people like you who have much more than 10 million, will say, but 10 million is little. But 10 million is covering a majority of the Ugandans, the vulnerable Ugandans are covered.
I only love one thing about it, that you have more belief that I have more than this account. But anyway, Patrick, let me get back to you here.
Yes.
What happens if, in case a depositor has a loan with the bank at the time of its closure?
It's a very straight answer.
Yeah.
If you have a loan with the bank, as a fund before you're paid, that loan has to be serviced. You see, the presumption is that one of the reasons that could have led to the collapse of that bank is borrowers who don't refund. It can be a contributing factor that can run down an institution. So it's obvious that any obligation, when you borrow money, you have to pay back. Sure. So let's say you had a loan of 5 million shillings with the bank. Okay? At the time when the bank closes, that 5 million has to be offset first. Then if there's any balance, that is what we give you. Because then that's part of the money that the liquidator then will use, you know, to pull together resources. And it is good practice that money borrowed should always be refunded. So as a fund, once you get the information that you owe the institution some money, whatever you owe is first offset, and then you get a difference if it exists.
And in case of a depositor has more than one account, and what if a depositor or depositors have a joint account in a contributing institution? What really happens under such circumstances?
Now, the key word is depositor.
Sure.
If Joram and Patrick have an account, a joint account, that is one deposit account. Okay? So at the time of compensation, when the financial institution closes, for that deposit account called Joram/Patrick, we'll get our 10 million. How we share it is now between you and me. Okay? Now, if Patrick has, let's say, 2 accounts within the same institution, those are amalgamated. But if you have in different institutions, that's another ballgame. Yeah, that's how it works.
And just to add on to what Patrick has said, for us to know that Joram is the one Joram, we'll use your national ID number. Because even if you've opened your bank account,
at least your NIN
will remain the same, despite the fact that you start with another name with Joram Sonko, then Sonko Joram, making it look like they're two different people, because legally they say those are 2 different people. But for us, we'll take you as one person because we know your national ID, and that's why that information has to be given to your bank, so that we don't overpay depositors, we don't underpay depositors as well.
Well, I think as we are strolling here, you get to realize there's a lot to know about the deposit protection in the country. And I think we are all confident now, at least by a sheer percentage, you can as well feel it's better for you to go in there and deposit some money into the banks. We have quite a number of commercial institutions in this country, by the way, and of course the Deposit Protection Fund is here to make sure that you, of course it is mandated to make sure that it protects your deposits as a saver or as a depositor in the country. Our conversations will be returning immediately after the break. It's now not Joram, Mercy and Andrew in the morning, it's rather Joram, Patrick and of course Julia in the morning, to make sure that we give you these conversations that dig deeper in understanding deposit taking and deposit protection. I don't know why I'm saying deposit taking, deposit savings, and of course deposit protection funds here, deposit protection fund here in the country. Stick around with us. When we return, we continue with our conversation, sum up, and of course various recommendations coming in from my two guests this morning. This is SMB.
Smart 24, driving business.
It's our mission to secure your money.
Protecting your money is as important as earning it. It is for this reason that the Deposit Protection Fund of Uganda, DPF, was established by the government of Uganda to provide deposit protection to customers of regulated financial institutions. In the unlikely event that your commercial bank, credit institution or microfinance deposit-taking institution fails, the DPF will pay you up to 10 million Uganda shillings. Keep your personal information such as national identification number, mobile phone, or an alternative bank account updated with your banker. Terms and conditions apply. For more information, contact DPF at Aha Towers, Plot 7 Lodell Road, Kampala. Call 0312-206-400 or visit our website at www.dpf.or.ug.
We are the